Let me ask you something. When was the last time you and your spouse had a disagreement? Now, be honest. Did that argument leave you feeling closer? Or did it leave you feeling like roommates in the same house? See, here's the truth. Every couple fights. The question isn't where the conflict shows up, it's whether you use it to build your marriage or break it down. So today, on Marriage Builder Sunday, we're going to show you how to turn conflict into connection. We're talking about the good fight, how to disagree respectfully, fight fair, and walk away stronger as a team. So if you've ever left a fight thinking we're on opposite sides, again, stick with me, because by the end of this episode, you'll see the real power is learning how to fight together. So welcome back, Uplifting Life Partners, to Simplified Uplifters Marriage Mastery Podcast, cultivating extraordinary connections. The podcast dedicated to giving you the tools to build, repair, and strengthen the foundation of your relationship so you can have a stronger, more joyful, and resilient marriage. And I'm your host, Ron Simplified Myers. Let's ignite possibilities together. So this is our Marriage Builder Sunday episode, and today we're diving into the topic, the good fight, how to disagree respectfully and resolve conflict as a team. A topic that every couple faces, but few actually master. Yes, even the best marriages have disagreements. The difference isn't whether you fight, it's how you fight. So on Wednesday, in our Self-Love Wednesday session, we talked about reclaiming your no, holding your ground without guilt. And today, we're taking the next step. We're learning how to bring that same healthy boundary into your marriage so that conflict becomes a tool of growth, not a weapon of destruction. So grab your tea, grab your donuts, grab your partner, and let's talk about how to turn conflict into connection. So before we go any further, I want to say this again, loud and clear. Conflict in marriage is not a red flag. It's not a sign of failure. It's actually a sign that you're two unique people who care deeply. Because if you didn't care, you wouldn't even bring it up. So again, when was the last time you and your spouse had a disagreement and you thought to yourself, wait, the fact that we're even talking about this means we both care. That's worth noting. So marriage brings together two different histories, two different sets of values, two different personalities. And honestly, that's a recipe for sparks, and not just the romantic kind. Again, have you ever found yourself in an argument and thought, why do we keep fighting about the same thing? Ooh, you're not alone. The issue isn't the fight itself, it's what we do once the emotions start to rise. So let me introduce you to Simone and Khalib. They're the couple we'll walk alongside today. See, Simone, she grew up in a family where dinner together every night was sacred. For her, family time, it equals love. Khalib, on the other hand, he feels the pressure of providing. His instinct is to put in more hours at work because to him, financial stability equals love. So what happens? Simone says, you don't care about us anymore. All you do is work. Woo! Well, Khalib, of course, is going to fire back. Do you think I like being at work all night? I'm doing this for you. Whew. Pause for a second. Have you ever had a fight that sounded a little like that? See, on the surface, it looks like they're fighting about time, money, or priorities. But underneath, Simone is really saying, I miss you. I need connection. And Khalib, all he's saying is, I want to be enough. I want to provide for us. See, that's the thing about conflict. It's rarely about what it looks like on the surface. So let's break this down. Most conflicts, they come from three places. Different values or upbringings. Maybe you grew up in a save every penny home, and your spouse, They grew up in a money's meant to be enjoyed home. Boom, money conflicts. Which one are you? The saver or the spender? How about different needs? One of you might crave the quality time while the other desperately needs space to decompress. Neither's wrong, but if you don't talk about it, it feels personal. What's your default when you're stressed? Do you lean in for connection or do you pull back for space? How about different stress responses? Some people are, let's talk it out right now, folks. And others are, give me a few hours to cool off first. Those type of folks. See this mismatch? It can turn a small disagreement into a big fight. Do you and your spouse handle stress the same way? Or are you the opposites? See, these everyday fights that I'm getting ready to talk about, I know you'll be able to recognize some of them. How about chores? One wants the dishes done right after dinner. The other says, it can wait until tomorrow. Woo! When was the last time something that simple like dishes or laundry had turned into something bigger in your home? How about parenting styles? One parent enforces bedtime at 8 o'clock p.m. Sharp. The other's more relaxed. Both want what's best for the kids, but the clash, it shows up in an argument. How about social life? One of you loves going out with friends. The other one, they love staying home. And without communication, one person feels rejected and the other feels smothered. See how all these are really about deeper needs, not just the surface issue? So here's the key takeaway. Conflict's normal. What matters isn't the disagreement. What matters is how you show up again when the emotions start to rise. So here's my question for you. The next time you and your spouse get into a disagreement, will you attack each other? Or will you take a breath and say, okay, it's us against the problem. That one shift, me versus you to us versus the problems, is what separates couples who drift apart from couples who grow actually stronger together. Okay, now that we've talked about why fighting happens, let's get practical. Because here's the deal. If conflict is normal, and it is, then the question is, how do we fight in a way that doesn't destroy the relationship, but actually strengthens it? That's where the Fighting Fair toolkit it comes in. These are the ground rules for what I call a good fight. And yes, good fights exist. They're the ones that lead to understanding instead of distance. How about rule number 1? No name calling, no cheap shots. Attack the problem, not the person. Sounds simple, but when emotions run hot, it's so tempting to reach for that low blow. Here's an exercise. Think about the last time you and your spouse fought. When you guys fought. Did you throw out a phrase you instantly wanted to take back? Maybe something like, you so lazy, or you never care. Now imagine how different that fight might have felt. Instead of attacking their character, you focused only on the issue. For example, when the trash piles up, I feel overwhelmed. Versus, you're such a slob. Totally different energy, right? Rule number 2, one issue at a time. Don't bring up 10 past arguments. I know this one. Oh, this is big. You're arguing about money and suddenly you're also fighting about laundry. What vacation from 3 years ago and how they were late to dinner last week. Again, picture a disagreement that you guys had recently. Did you stay on the one issue? Or did you bring in a list of everything you've ever done wrong? You've been waiting for this. And if you're nodding right now, don't feel bad. Most of us do this. But here's the thing. When you pile on, your spouse stops hearing you. Fighting fair means staying focused on this moment, this issue. Yes, I'm guilty. Rule number 3, take turns, no interrupting. This one's tough, especially if you're passionate or quick with words. But here's the truth. If both of you are talking at the same time, nobody's actually being heard. Here's a mini challenge for you. The next time you feel the urge to interrupt, pause and say to yourself, let me hear them through. Then notice what shifts when your spouse actually feels heard. And for the quiet partner that's listening to us right now, your job is to speak up when it's your turn. Taking turns only works if both voices show up. How about rule number 4? Timeouts are allowed. Step away if emotions get too heated. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is hit pause. That's not abandonment. That's protection. So if you and your spouse had a safe phrase for timeouts, what could it be? Something simple like, I need 10 minutes. Or, let's circle back. Imagine how many arguments could be spared from saying things you regret if you had permission to just breathe before responding. So let's bring back Simone and Khalid back in here. Here's the wrong way that their fight, it might sound. Simone says, you always put work before me. You don't care about this family. Now notice, you always, you don't care. That's character assassination. It paints Khalid as the villain. So here's the right way. Simone, when you work late night 3 nights in a row, I feel lonely and overlooked. Same situation, same frustration, but instead of blame, Simone is revealing her heart. Here's the key lesson, and we've talked about this many times in the past. We're going to talk about it again. I statements versus you accusations. That's the golden rule of a good fight. You swap out the you accusations for I statements. This is something, again, that we've talked about, but it still holds a great place in this conversation. Because you statements, they do sound like blame. You never listen. You don't care. You always. And then the I statements, it sounds like vulnerability. I feel unimportant when. I need. I miss. Again, think about the last time you wanted to say in an argument and reframe the I statement. An example, you never have with the kids. Try. I feel exhausted when I handle bedtime alone. I need your support. You feel the shift? That one change can take your spouse from defensive to curious, from shutting down to leaning in. So let's recap. Fighting fair means no cheap shots, one issue at a time, take turns, and timeouts are okay. And the secret sauce, always choose I statements over the you accusations. So here's my challenge for you this week. The next time a disagreement pops up, and it will, try just one of these rules, just one. Then notice how the temperature of the argument, how it shifts. Because when you learn to fight fair, you stop tearing each other down and you start proving, hey, even in the middle of the conflict, we're still on the same team. And that is where trust and intimacy grows. All right, so we've talked about why fights happen and we built our toolkit for fighting fair. Now it's time for the real mindset shift that can transform your marriage. It's this simple. In a healthy marriage, again, it's not me versus you, it's us versus the problem. Once you actually grab hold of that truth, everything about conflict changes. Because see, most couples, maybe even you, they fall into the trap of making the spouse the enemy. And it sounds like this. You're the problem. You never change. You always. Here again is the problem. When your spouse feels like the target, their defenses go up. And then when defenses go up, connection, it goes down. Again, think about your last disagreement. Did it feel like you and your spouse were on the opposite teams, or did it feel like you were tackling the issue together? Again, be honest, because awareness, that's the first step. So again, let's go back to Simone and Khalid. Remember their fight about Khalid working late? In the old mindset, It's Simone versus Khalid. She's frustrated. He's defensive. And they're locked into a tug of war. Nobody wins. But what if they shifted their perspective to us versus the problem? Instead of Simone, you don't care about the family. Khalid, I'm working my tail off for you. It could sound like this. Simone, I miss you and I want more family time. And Khalid, I want that too, but I also feel pressure to provide. Now, instead of being enemies, they're actually teammates. They're tackling the real problem: how to balance work and family. See the shift? So, how do we make that shift? Let's get practical with that magic number 3 simple strategies that couples can use. Reframe the language. Again, swap you with we. Instead of you spend too much, try we need to find a way to budget that works for the both of us. I want again you to think of a common fight you have. Reframe it into a we comment. The second one, divide and conquer. In high pressure moments, assign roles instead of doubling stress. For example, one handles logistics, the other handles emotional support. It's teamwork in action. And also check your body language. Sit next to your spouse instead of across from them when you're hashing something out. The physical choice, it sends a silent message. We're on the same side. Quick little trick, huh? Now I want you to try something right now. Picture the biggest recurring fight in your marriage. You got it? Okay. Now imagine the two of you physically moving to the same side of the table, looking at the problem on a piece of paper in front of you. Now, how would that fight feel? It'd be different if it was two of you versus the problem instead of you versus each other. That mental picture, it can change the energy instantly. Here's the takeaway on that one. Shifting from me versus you to us versus the problem, it doesn't erase the conflict, but it reframes it. Suddenly, your spouse isn't your rival, they're your ally. And every time you face a challenge together, you prove to each other we can handle things together. That's what builds trust. That's what builds intimacy. And that's what keeps marriages strong in the long run. Okay, so we've covered why fights happen. We built up our fighting fair toolkit, and we shifted the mindset to us versus the problem. Now let's roll up our sleeves and let's talk about some practical strategies to actually resolve conflict as a team. Because here's the truth. Awareness is powerful, but action is what actually brings change. Strategy number 1, create calm rituals. When tensions are high, couples need ways to come back down together. I call these calm rituals. It might be something simple like brewing tea, or sitting together at the table, a no phone dinner, or taking a short walk around the block. Here's an exercise for you. What's one ritual you and your spouse could create that says, even when we fight, we return to peace together? Think of something small and doable. You don't need an hour-long retreat. Sometimes 3 deep breaths together, that can shift the whole mood. Strategy number 2, the old divide and conquer. Stress multiples when both of you are carrying the same load. Strong couples learn to divide and conquer. Here's an example. Simone and Khalid. When money stress hits, Simone takes the lead on planning the family calendar. Why Khalid? He handles setting up a monthly budget, and then they check in. So instead of both being overwhelmed, they split the roles. One focus on logistics, the other on the emotional support. So think about your biggest shared stress right now. What's one piece of that stress you can hand off to your spouse? And what's one piece you could own fully, so you're not stepping on each other's toes? Strategy number 3, the pause button. Remember those times we talked about earlier? Now let's add a layer to that. If you create a pause button, or create a phrase that both of you can agree on. It can be something funny, like banana bread, or simple like let's pause. When one of you says it, the fight stops. No questions asked. What would your pause phrase be? Take a moment. Picture yourself in a heated moment. Wouldn't it feel safer if either of you could hit the pause without fear of being accused of walking away? Strategy number 4, mirror listening. This one's a game changer. Mirror listening, it means when your spouse shares their side, you repeat it back, what you've heard, before you actually respond. It might sound something like this. Khalid says, I feel like I have to work overtime to provide. And Simone, so what I hear you saying is that working those extra hours makes you feel responsible as a provider, right? That simple act proves you were listening, and it slows down the fight so you can both feel understood. So here's what I want you to do. Try this the next time your spouse says something in conflict. Don't respond. Don't defend. Just repeat back what you heard. And then ask, did I get that right? Whew. You'll be amazed at how much lower the temperature just became. That last one, it feels small, but folks, it's huge. Always end a disagreement with something you appreciate about your spouse. It can be, thank you for being honest with me. I know this was hard, but I love that you stuck it out with me. Because gratitude, it resets the tone. Even if you didn't solve everything, you reminded each other we're still on the same team. So what's one thing you can thank your spouse for even after a disagreement? Maybe it's their effort, their patience, or simply the fact that they stayed in the conversation. See, let's go back to Simone and Khalid one more again. Instead of staying stuck in, you don't care about me, they tried the toolkit. Simone said, when you work late 3 nights in a row, I feel lonely. Khalid listened, mirrored it back, and then he explained, I want to be with you, but I feel pressure to provide. See, they divided the problem. Simone suggested family dinners at least 3 nights a week, non-negotiable. Khalid agreed, and they both committed to checking in on the financial monthly, so the financial pressure wasn't just on him. Did they solve everything in that one night? No, you guys know better than that. But they walked away with a plan, and more importantly, they walked away still connected. So here's the big idea. Conflict, it doesn't have to be a wedge that pushes you apart. With calm rituals, divide and conquer, pause buttons, mirror listening, and that gratitude, you can actually use conflict as a tool to grow closer. And I want you to try this. Pick just one of these strategies and practice it this week. Not all 5, just one. Now, you can do all 5 if you want to. No. But just take one and watch how it shifts the energy between you and your spouse. Because marriage, again, it isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about learning how to face it together as a team. Wow. We've covered a lot today. If you've been with us from the start, I want to thank you for leaning into this conversation. Because let's be honest, conflict inside of marriage, it isn't easy to talk about. But by showing up and listening, you're already proven that your relationship matters to you. So let's zoom out and let's tie this all together. Segment 1, we normalize conflict. Fighting isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign that 2 people care deeply. Remember Simone and Khalid. Their fights weren't about the dishes or the hours at work. They were about longing to feel loved and understood. Segment 2, we built the Fighting Fair toolkit. 4 rules, no cheap shots, 1 issue at a time, take turns, and timeouts. And then we added the golden rule. Use the I statements, not you accusations. And then segment number 3, we made the mindset shift from me versus you to us versus the problem. That one change transformed conflict from a tug of war into teamwork. Segment 4, we got practical with strategies, calm rituals, divide and conquer, pause buttons, mirror listening, and gratitude. Tools you can put into practice starting tonight. So here's what I'd love for you to do. Pick again just one thing that stood out today. Just one. Don't overwhelm yourself with everything at once. Maybe it's practicing the I statement. Maybe it's creating a pause button. Maybe it's ending every fight with gratitude. Which one of these do you and your spouse need the most right now? Hold on to that answer, because that's your next step. And think about Simone and Khalid. They started in a cycle of defensiveness and hurt, but with some new tools and a new mindset, they found a way to listen, to reframe, and to create a plan together. Your marriage, it can have the same story. Not perfect, not fight free, but strong, resilient, and connected. So again, remember this. Conflict is not the enemy. Disconnection is. And every time you choose to fight fair, every time you choose us versus the problem, every time you show gratitude, even in the middle of a mess, you're building a marriage that can weather anything. Because love, it isn't about never disagreeing. Love's about how you show up when you do. So we'll be back next week for another Marriage Builder Sunday episode. And remember to visit the Simplified Uplifters Marriage, the Mastery Podcast Facebook page that we set up where you can communicate us in a much more personal way. And then for more exclusive training, deeper dives, our app, and our clothing apparel, we placed all that information in the bio of this podcast. Or you can visit the website, simplifieduplifters.net. And if you found value in today's episode, we would appreciate you sharing this and the podcast itself with those that you know need to hear this message. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Simplified Uplifters Marriage Mastery Podcast so you don't miss out our upcoming Self-Love Wednesday, where we'll explore individual areas to strengthen your journey to self-love. So again, I want to thank you for joining me on this transformative Marriage Builder Sunday. And until next time, nurture your soul, protect your energy, be kind to yourself, and build the marriage of your dreams. Most important, remember your power. You are extraordinary.